Hey everyone, so today I'm back with another video. This time it's Street Fighter 6, and these are the matches from my climb to Master Rank. From Master Rank to High Master Rank, which is 1600 MR. Now, this might be unimpressive to seasoned SF6 players, and clearly I'm nowhere near the level of the best players in my country or anywhere else, but I believe a High Master is around 2 or 3%, top 2 or 3% of the active ranked player base, and I hadn't played the game in a year and a half, so it's really not that bad. The reason I picked up this game again, very recently, just last week, I was watching the Red Bull Comité event last weekend, and I decided to hop back on the game with a few friends afterwards, and it was a lot of fun. Even though I hadn't played the game in a really long time, I found it really cool. So then on the next day I decided to try playing ranked again to see if it was still the same as on release. I already had played the ranked mode on release, and I already had 4 characters in master ranks from the first few weeks following the release of the game, but I had never gotten above 1550 MR back then. And I got bored of the ranked mode at some point and moved on to a different game. I think I got a little burned out back then. And also because it was just point-based Edo ranking system back then without any additional ranks. I, didn't find it too much to keep grinding the game, even though I had a lot to learn still. But since they added new master ranks pretty recently, I decided to see if I could reach one of these with Manon, who is my favorite character in the game. And now I'm a third strike player at heart, really, but I'm half decent at the game, but SFC's plays completely different. I have to say, I had to try to remember the game flow, the game mechanics while dealing with the new DLC characters that I've never played against before, which definitely took some adjustments. I'm playing against Ed, for instance, here, and by no means are these high-level matches, but I have basically no idea what he can do, which makes it a bit challenging to play against. But still, I ended up making it to High Master on the first day, which surprised me a little. And I started by losing my first few matches. As you can see at this point, I'm at 1,502 MR, but I started right below 1,500, which is the average, which is the starting point you get when you make it to master rank. And at this point, I was getting a bit desperate to regain points, to be honest, which shows in the way that I play. It's a little messy and sloppy at this point, but I went on a pretty bad losing streak, so I had to try and win any matches that I could. I think there's something about the mechanics of Street Fighter 6, mainly because of the drive system and the way people tend to play under pressure, that makes people really crack and make stupid decisions. And that also includes me, of course. I'm not immune to this either, even though I generally tend to have good decision making in other games. I find that in this game, it's really difficult to play on a strategic level because the momentum can shift really quickly, and that's something that I also enjoy about this game. I know a lot of people don't like it too much. To me, I find it fun. It is true that the execution barrier is lower than on previous Street Fighter games. Some of the mechanics are hard to play around, but at the same time, I think that the game being so chaotic means that playing well consistently is even more difficult. So I don't think the game is easy. I think the game is actually pretty hard. It might be easy to beat someone better than you. I don't even know for sure. But I still do find it really hard for myself to beat players that are, way above me in terms of MR. I played against a Grandmaster ranked player the same day that I did this run on ranked, and it was pretty bad beatdown. It was really difficult for me to win. I think, for this game, if they end up nerfing neutral drive rush a little, because I do think it's too strong at the moment, it gives too much of an advantage, and it's too hard to punish on reaction, basically. They probably need to nerf throw loops a little bit and perfect parry as well, and then maybe make drive reversal a little stronger, because for some characters like Manon, it's almost their only viable reversal option. So they will need to make it a little better, I think. But the game will be in a really good spot if they do that, because I do think that the drive system is really interesting and compelling. The only other thing I don't really like about the game is that a lot of the strong characters tend to have the same archetype. They usually use some sort of projectile or anti-air special, like DP, or rely on crouching, medium kick, drive rush, which I think is okay, because drive rush is what sort of makes this game different from a lot of other fighting games. Although I'd argue that it's mainly the drive system as a whole that gives Street Fighter 6 its own identity. But at the same time, I do find that a lot of the Shoto type characters tend to be similar and really strong, which is a little unfortunate. I think the game could do with a little more variety. I enjoy the characters that do play differently, like JP, Guile. There's probably a few others that I forget, but I do think that that would help the game a little to make the characters play a little more differently. But I also do think it's by far the best out of the current modern fighting games. Now, before starting to actually talk about the matches themselves, so that at this point, they're not, I don't think they're all that interesting at the moment anyway, but I'll share a few tips. If any of you are currently playing this game and playing Master Rank or even below, and currently struggling, a few things I noticed is, first off, you should definitely make decisions based on your own drive gauge and your opponents, and based on their super meter, and not so much on the life bar. I think in this game, the health bar at the top is actually not that important. For instance, taking a throw when they have a level 3 super available is always a bad idea, because even if you guess right, you take a huge risk, and even if you guess right, you don't get much return at all. Like, you're probably still in the corner, you gain a little bit of distance, but it's not great reward. So generally, I'd say taking throws on defense tends to be very risky and not rewarding. So going for a jump or walk back, if you can, if you're not in the corner, it does tend to be a better idea, because at least when you're right, you do get some type of reward. Of course, it's not that easy, but I would say taking a throw is generally a better option than trying to tech. Attacking your opponent's gauge drive is also something that's really important, and you notice that even the players that I'm playing against at Master Rank around 1500 MR to 1600 MR, for the most part, they are pretty bad at drive gauge management, I have to say. Not to throw shade on anyone, that's just probably how it is. It is hard to manage. I think it's the name of the game. Managing your drive gauge is the difference between an average player and a good player, if I'm being honest. For most characters, being in burnout state is really bad, and that applies to both you and your opponent. For instance, let's watch this Terry player. He just starting the game by burning himself out, and he's probably, he's gonna win the round, but that could have gone really badly for him. I don't think that was necessarily a great decision, even though it worked out. I probably could have won this if I was a bit more careful. I don't have much of an idea of what Terry can do, to be honest. This is the first Terry I've ever played against, because he's a pretty recent DLC character. But I think, for instance, here, my drive gauge is low, but I'm trying not to burn out unless it's the end of the round. Like, this is, this combo is going to kill, and I'm going to get a refill on my drive gauge anyway. So it doesn't matter if I use it and if I get burned out, because in the next round, I'm going to have a full drive gauge. So at this point, it's worth it. And it's actually, an interesting part of the game that sometimes you have to make these types of optimizations and maybe even burn yourself out as long as it makes you win. But if it doesn't, it's very risky. For instance, see, at this point, he's burned out. And he's in pretty bad spot, even though he does have level 3, so that could be dangerous for me. Yeah, and I just burnt. So I think that was not a great decision, actually. I probably shouldn't have decided to burn out here, even though the level 3 is gonna, fill out some of my drive meter. At this point, see, I'm trying to walk back and be a bit careful. The thing is, he's burned out as well, so he takes additional Bloxton, which means, I can also try and bully him. So again, all of this to say that managing your drive gauge is super important, and that's the one thing you should be, watching for when playing the game, for sure. Also, I've noticed that players at these ranges tend to play a bit panicky and make, how do you say that? They tend to make questionable decisions, both in neutral, anti-air, and wake-up situations. So not all of them. There are good players in this range. Like, you'll see some of the games that I played, and I've definitely lost a few games during this run. I played some decent players for sure, but for the most part, people play very panicky. Like, they get really stressed out, and they just try to get out of pressure situations in any way that they see fit or possible, which I understand, because the game does sort of discourage blocking, because blocking means you're losing drive gauge, but at the same time you have to take risk into account, always in fighting games. So one thing you have to do if you want to win games in this MR range, I would say, is you have to test the waters first when you're, in the first round against a new opponent. Thankfully, people do tend to rematch. So, you usually get 2 or 3 games against them, which is, more than enough time to read their bad habits quickly. And then you need to find the right moments to either apply pressure on them or let them hang themselves. So you also need to be able to give them space to make mistakes. If you attack or defend too much, I think you're probably going to have a bad time in this game, and especially in the ranked mode, because most players have patterns, and I think these guys play the game so much that they sort of play the game on autopilot, and they're not great at adapting, which is difficult in this game, to be fair. But a lot of people play this game as if it were a single player game, which is not. It's very much the opposite of that. So, of course you will find players who will adapt, and it's important to identify them very early on and avoid autopiloting yourself, because, if you want to beat them, that's not going to work. So I find that this game is also really high octane and requires constant fast reactions to, either anti-air on reaction or beat drive rush on reaction. So if you play for too long, you're bound to get tired and start playing on autopilot, which is not good. You want your reactions to be sharp, and you want your decision making to be sharp in this game as well. So you want to get in the zone, but not get too anxious, because the constant pressure can really get to you, I find, in this game. For me, so this is the advice I'm getting, but I actually did not follow this advice. For this session, I played all of my games one after the other, and without breaks. But I actually don't recommend this. I think it's probably a mistake. For instance, if you start feeling too frustrated or too nervous, take a break and go play something else, or go do something else, because it's not worth it, and you're just going to play worse and worse if you get tilted. And I find it's easy to get tilted in this game. I usually don't get too annoyed or upset playing fighting games. So, for instance, for this run, it was fine for me. But if I played this for really long, I could see this happening sometimes, because, again, the game is chaotic, and what works against one player may not work against others. So it's a hard game, once again. Other than that, I don't really have much advice aside from, try not to jump in too much or use drive impact too often, which is something that I definitely do in these games. Like, it's one of the things that I have to work on, because it's, it works against some players, but strong reactive players will just beat you down if you do that. And I've noticed that my success rate with drive impact outside of the corner, and even in the corner, to be fair, I've noticed it was pretty low. So even when you burn out your opponent, going for a non-guaranteed drive impact in this game is usually not a great idea. Like, what you want to do is you want to cook them a little first and keep them guessing, and then make your move, whether that's a drive impact or a cheap out situation or something. See, this is, for instance, this Ken player I find is probably better than me at this game. Like, he plays reactively, he's pretty solid, makes good decisions, or at least better than mine. So I was definitely outclassed here. Also, I find that Ken is a character I tend to struggle with quite a bit with Manon. I think in the neutral I can usually do okay, although I do have to either play quite aggressive or play very defensive and sort of reactive, trying to react to Dragon Lash and also stay out of crouching medium kick range. But if I play too passive, he's just going to destroy my drive gauge with Jinrai kicks and standing high punch. So it's pretty hard. As you can see here, I'm struggling to find openings. I'm probably going to jump a little too much. Yeah, see, right away. Because I'm feeling the pressure of having to get in close. Which, Manon is that type of character where you have to make a move, but you can't be too obvious about it. And obviously here I'm not playing great, but he's also very patient, which is good. Now, I guess I'll talk about Manon a little and start, analyzing the games in more detail soon. But I really like playing her, and she's a cool hybrid snowball / grappler type of character. But she's probably not great. Like, she doesn't really play the meta of this game too well. Her drive rush is really slow. She doesn't really have great reversal options. She has a command grab that people tend to be afraid of, and it's probably her best option, so that makes sense. But at the same time, I don't think it's necessarily her strongest tool, because it's very risky for her as well. Like, if you need to land it a few times before it becomes really scary, so you need to level up the medals, and then she becomes really scary, usually in the second or third round. But she gets no pressure of most of her knockdowns, which I understand, but that means she's not a full-on rushdown character. You also have to be cautious. And also the command grab I find is a double-edged sword for sure. And I thought that would be a high kick, Jinrai kick, but it wasn't. So he was able to drive back. There's actually a sound cue that you can use. I think he says Jinrai or something like that. But I didn't watch for it. I'm probably going to end up losing this game the way it's going now. I'm definitely struggling here. But yeah, going back to the command grab, it's, if you grab too much, you're probably going to die because of it. And that also happens to me, because I do tend to use the command grab a little too much, I think, still. But it's generally okay to use as long as you're getting meaningful information about the way your opponent thinks, with these interactions. So it's probably okay if he jumps out, even though you're going to get punished, and they're going to do more damage, punishing you if they do a vertical jump. On their way down, they're going to combo and they're going to do more damage than you would have done to them if the command grab worked. But at the same time, at least now they're probably going to jump. So then you can use that information and, optimize your approach depending on how they respond. So for instance, it may sound basic, but if they neutral jump your command grab and punish it, then make a mental note of it next time, because you can focus on beating the jump out using grounding normals or anti-airs, or maybe even a normal throw, which is safer and has less recovery, and then you can probably anti-air back on reaction. So think about these things. What you really don't want to do is autopilot and try to command grab every time, for instance, or just do it again when it hasn't worked the first time, because that will get you killed really quickly. Since people tend to play on autopilot in this mode, them jumping out once means they're probably, unless they're a really good player, they're probably going to do it again next time. And generally the command grab works when people least expect it, or when they cannot react to your approach. So you have to mix up your timings. Sometimes you have to throw out a poke first, you have to drive rush first, you have to throw out a couple, or you have to do like just empty command grab. But you have to make them afraid to jump first. And that is usually done by using, light buttons or how do you call that? Target combos as well, which do quite a bit less damage than the command grab, but you have to play the game that way, and you also have to focus on the neutral. I would say Manon's greatest strength, even though I'm sort of playing her as a rushdown character, probably a little too much, which is risky. I would say her greatest strength is probably her neutral. Like, she has some great buttons. Standing medium punch is great. Standing, as you can see, standing high kick is really good. Her crouching medium kick, even though it doesn't lead into combos outside of drive rush, is still quite good. So at this point, again, I'm playing against Ed. He seems to be a pretty popular character, at least around these MR ranges, and I don't know much about the way he plays. Like, I think they made him really cool in this game. I really didn't care for him much in Street Fighter V, but in this game he's pretty interesting and seems quite technical. And honestly, I think he looks pretty hard to play. And this guy kind of looks like he knows what he's doing, and I'm definitely getting a little nervous, I think, at this point. You can see from the jumping and the sort of low spinny kick special, which is really unsafe. I'm playing a bit too frantic, I think, in this game, and I'm gonna lose, I think. Can't remember. I didn't pay too much attention. I might have won the first one, but this is a very solid game that he's playing. And yeah, this is bad. Although I do get the lucky super because he was trying to chip me out. This is going to be way too hard. Yeah, for sure. I was trying to end it quickly because since I was in burnout, he was definitely going to chip me out and get the win. But it didn't work out. This is something that will happen in this game. You will be put in difficult situations where you have to make decisions quickly. And thankfully for me, this is not too hard coming for third strike. I think that game does help with decision making, but that also means that my neutral is probably a bit lacking, which it is in other games as well. So I have to play a bit more patient, a bit more ground based. But here it seems to work out. I'm trying to get more medals for sure. I wasn't able to anti-air that neutral jump. I think people love to see, he likes to neutral jump. Now I've noticed. So he's probably going to jump out of a bunch of things. So at this point, see, he did it twice. Although that was a reversal, so he might have missed his EXTP. But I think he was also trying to get out at any cost. So he's afraid of the command grab. That's what this tells me. Is that this guy for sure is afraid of the command grab. And knowing this, I can hit him in 50-50 situations, and it's probably going to work. And then, once I've done enough, I can go back to using the command grab, which I did here. I'm not sure where he did drive impact. I think that was very scary. Maybe he meant to do drive reversal instead. That happens to me as well. I get drive impact instead of drive reversal. Yeah, I think this is the game. That was a pretty good anti-air. Like, I was pretty patient. I think he probably shouldn't have jumped because he had level 3 or CA, so he could definitely make a comeback. But I understand, being anxious, especially in this mode. People don't play patient for sure. So that happens to me as well. Now I'm playing against Jamie. Jamie I know a little because he was available on release, so I played against him. But again, it's one of the characters that I don't know that well. Like, I know when he drinks, he gets access to more special moves, but I can't remember what order they're in. I think the first one might be dive kick, and then there's a command grab. I'm not too sure. So definitely, I'm not familiar with the matchups, which you need to be if you want to become really strong at this game. But the fact that I can make it so far without really knowing all that much about what the characters are doing shows that, you know, it's honestly probably a bit more about the decision making and ground game than about having super technical or deep knowledge about how the characters do. Although I do think that at higher MI ranges, for sure it's going to be more about knowing the nuances between the characters. I think a lot of the players I'm playing against have sort of sloppy or basic offense, and if it were a bit tighter, it would be more difficult for me to get out. But so far things are going okay against this Jamie player. He doesn't seem to be anti-airing me too much when I'm able. So I'm able to jump. See, I'm able to jump on him anytime. And honestly, so that might seem sort of scrubby, like, but if he's not anti-airing, I'm gonna keep jumping because I'm gonna win the game if he's not doing that. So here I get a little lucky with that drive rush, and gets under the dive kick. That is not something I was doing on purpose. I think I realized I was getting too close to the corner and I didn't want to walk back too much. So then I did a drive rush just to gain some distance. And he didn't adjust, like he didn't gauge the distance well enough. But at this point, you know, if I can jump on someone, oh, that's a combo that doesn't exist. I don't know what I was thinking there. Probably playing a bit too fast at this point. I need to slow it down a little. But because he was not really countering my approaches, whether it was jumping or dashing, then it makes it really easy for Manon to create pressure. But this could be a difficult round because he did manage to get to drink level 4. Yeah, I'm definitely going to lose this. I think he gets really good pressure at drink level 4. The thing is, unlike Manon, he cannot keep his drink level into the next round. Yeah, I think that's special. Oh wow, he was trying to get 2 drinks, which is really greedy. But yeah, the EX palm special that he does, that sort of reminds me of Yoon's Zesho or Lunch Punch in Third Strike. It seems to be really good. At this point, I tried to do Drive Impact back because I saw it, but I got Crouching Hard Punch. It should probably have been standing to try and do this. But even then, what happened is probably I probably didn't hit both buttons right at the same time. I'm playing this on stick. You know, I always play fighting games on stick. And I think for this game, this is the first Street Fighter where I've really felt that playing on pad would probably be better. Just because you get the shortcuts for like Drive Impact and Drive Parry and all of that. Which, you know, you can do that on stick as well. Like I do have 2 additional buttons, but they're so out of the way. And it's sort of confusing to play with 8 buttons for me. At least I'm not used to it. So I'm not using any shortcuts. I'm just using the default 6 buttons. Which means that sometimes I do mess up the... Oh wow, that was probably a mistake on his part. And this is bad drive management for me. I'm just trying to burn him out at this point, and I get a little lucky with the interaction. I think he's noticed that I'm trying to get him to burn out. That was a really bad super. I found that super almost never works because... Although it's a grab, you can actually jump after the flash, after the startup animation. So the only way it works is if they stuck out a move. So I think her level 2 super is actually better. Yeah, here I kind of stole this, honestly. He was too slow to react to the standing medium punch into drive rush, into command grab. But he probably should have won this game. And here I'm probably starting to feel a little, a little good about this, because I've never really gotten that high in terms of MR. Unfortunately, this is who's the latest DLC character, and I've played exactly one game against her before, so I'm not sure what she can do. I know about the basic game plan being that, she throws out her fan projectiles and she can charge them or use the EX version. And then they bounce out of you, and they bounce a second time, and you get really good pressure with Mai, it seems like. She seems really strong in this game. Like, really dominating the neutral. She also has good buttons. So I'm sort of trying to skip a lot of the neutral game here, because I'm not sure what the right distances to play at are. And also because I haven't played this game in a really long time, I'm not completely confident in the ranges I'm using even my own buttons at, which is something that's really important in fighting games and Street Fighter specifically. You want to use the buttons as an extension of your character, an extension of yourself, I find. And it's something that you shouldn't even have to think about. Like, you should have played so much that you're comfortable with knowing exactly when a button is going to hit and when it's going to whiff, depending on your movement and the opponents, which is something that's actually very hard to do. Like, I think it's the hardest thing in fighting games, at least for me. I find it harder than making decisions. See, that's definitely a bad command grab. I should have gone for a normal grab here, especially since he gets a really good punish with level 3. So that's losing, what is it, like almost 2/3 of my life for a whiffed command grab. But at least I know he likes to jump. And yeah, I think he noticed I was going for wake up supers, which is pretty bad. And I'm probably going to lose this game. Yeah, I do. Which, to be fair, I think he played a whole lot better than me. Like, I'm playing too unsafe and too stressed out, because I don't know Mai all that well. And I find that in this game, a lot of people tend to play the DLC characters. Maybe because they paid for them in the first place, and they seem to be pretty well designed for the most part. At least I really like them. But also because they're pretty strong in this game specifically. I find that, most of the DLC characters seem to be really good. Yeah, I'm doing empty jump, so if I hit a button there, I probably would have gotten hit by the her dragon punch, but I didn't, because I didn't hit a button. And this is really good because it allows me to, of course, get some pressure and get a medal level from this, but also what it does is it's going to make her more afraid of using anti-air, which means I can jump a bit more freely and get more pressure. So it's sort of like a mix-up. It's still a little risky, because if they move forward, then they can still anti-air, but if they don't, then they sort of had to second guess themselves or use a normal to do it. So I think it's worth it in the end. You just have to be cautious with your jump timings and not be too predictable. I think at this point I'm being a bit predictable, but still they are not able to anti-air me too much, which I'm thankful for. Although in this game, to be fair, because there's drive rush that closes the distance very quickly, it's harder to anti-air, I find. Even for me, when I'm playing against a character, especially the ones that have good drive rushes. Like, I don't think that's the case for Manon, honestly. I very rarely use drive rush in neutral, as you'll see, which is quite rare. I think for most characters, it is a great option. For hers, it's so slow that it's not really worth it. But I find that people still play the game as if I had a great drive rush to use in neutral, which I don't. So they can probably play a bit more comfortable with their entire. Yeah, here it definitely missed his dragon punch input, so I got a little lucky. Get pushed into the corner where it's really hard to defend, for sure. Oh, I've never seen that combo. And I do try teching. This is a hard round to recover from, but since I've put her in the corner, it might be doable. Let's see. Yeah, it might not because her projectile is so strong. And that's an overhead, I think. It doesn't look like an overhead. It's honestly a really strong, really weird animation, but it is one. And I think her pressure is really strong. And one of Manon's weaknesses is she doesn't deal with pressure well at all. Like, she has almost no reversals. Her only true reversal is level 2, honestly, but that's very easily negated by jumping over her. Like, just jumping forward will make this super whiff. And a lot of people will do that on Wake Up, and if you lose your entire super gauge, it's really bad. And level 1 is also invincible, except to projectiles, but unfortunately it's really slow. So they can stick out a light punch, a meaty light punch on your Wake Up, and they can still pressure you, and at the same time, if you use level 1, they can block. Well, that was a bad EX reversal. I think he made a mistake. I think I do end up blocking here as well, yeah. Because I've realized he's starting to just throw everything out, and he's afraid of command grabs, basically. So that means I can go all in. So all the conditioning in the previous rounds ends up working out, in the final game and the final round, which is interesting. It's kind of like playing tournament sets. That's something I like about playing this game as well. Is it looks like most people, almost everyone, does rematch, unless you get matched up with someone who has a lot more MR than you, and in that case I understand them not giving you a run back, because they stand to lose a whole lot more points than you do, which is a little unfair to them. But for people who are within the same MR range, almost everyone rematches, which I thought was really cool, because I've played quite a bit of Tekken, for instance, and people tend to one and done you a lot in that game. And even on release, when I played Street Fighter 6, I think a lot of people were doing the same, like just playing one game, and if they lose, if you figure them out, even sometimes when they win, but they're not confident they can do it again, then they leave, which I don't think is the case anymore at this point in the game's life, which is really cool, because that's how you play fighting games. I think, what makes fighting games special is that you have to adapt to what your opponent is doing. Like, you take the information, you decide what to do with it, and formulate a game plan, which I think is what's interesting about these games. And I'm not really interested in using the same flow chart strategy from one game to the other. I think that's pretty boring, honestly. Like, you may win games, but you're also going to lose some, and it doesn't feel like you're learning anything. I think what makes these games interesting overall is that there's a lot to learn, and there's almost infinite replay value, if you will, because, well, if you can find opponents, of course. But there's always going to be... I was sort of feeling myself a little bit with these dashes, honestly, but because now she's in corner, she's probably going to have a tough time. I think burning out here was bad, but I may be able to finish the game. Yeah. Again, I'm guessing... So either she used Drive Impact because I was burned out, and she thought I was going to, hit the button, but that's not a great option, or she tried to drive reversal, which would have worked here. But I don't know if that's the case. I find that a lot of people use drive impact on Wake Up, which I think is a pretty bad option and doesn't really work out, especially against a character with a command grab, because I think you get a punish counter out of that, so it does more damage. So it's definitely a bad option against Manon. See, yeah, he did it again, so I think it's just something that he tends to use. It's interesting that even in master ranks, people play like this. Like, they use these very risky options on Wake Up. But, it is what it is. I guess it probably took the Spire all the way here. So, that means it works. And they're going to keep doing it until it doesn't. And then they're going to learn that it doesn't. And they're going to adapt and improve. Which, again, is what makes these games interesting. Like, I enjoy playing against stronger players. I wouldn't say I enjoy losing, but I enjoy when they force me to learn new things, because that means I'm improving and I'm, getting better at learning things, which is something that I enjoy. that was pretty good, but I definitely could have done another drive rush and burned out, because at this case it was gonna end the game anyway, it was gonna kill. So that's, you know, that's an optimization that I'm not good at yet, is recognizing when it's a game ending combo and it doesn't matter if I burn out, and that combo, you know, also leads into super, for instance level 3 or level 2, which makes it, you know, there are a lot of variables to take into account here, which is your opponent's life, your drive gauge, and your super gauge. And, you know, I find that making decisions that mix up all three tends to be complicated compared to what I see in other games. So it's hard to play optimal in this game. And I really respect like the top players who can do that, because I find that it's a little more difficult than in other fighting games in that regard. So at this point I'm playing against another Shoto player, or Ryu player. And I'm not, you know, even though I know how to play against Shotos generally because I do play other Street Fighter games, but I find that in this game they're pretty strong and I tend to struggle against them because I don't think Manon is that great against projectiles. Thankfully this guy doesn't use Fireball too much. And I also find that I have to jump quite a bit or play defensive, which is hard because I have to stay outside of crouching medium kick range. So it's the same, kind of the same problem as against Ken, and also the fact that they can destroy your drive gauge so quickly. Like this guy is not doing it. He's not attacking my drive gauge. I think this is a guy with decent fundamentals in Street Fighter. See, he can DP when I jump. He has good reactions. Oh, yeah. That's pretty bad. And he's going to get burned out. At this point, all I need to do is not get hit. That's why I backdashed. Because he had CA. So one hit would have killed me. But yeah, he got a little unlucky, honestly, with that drive impact when he did the EX Shoryuken. I think he's probably a sort of old school player. Ryu is really popular, I find. And I think he's pretty strong, honestly. And people also, you know, need to realize, so maybe there aren't that many Manon players, I'm not sure, but people don't seem to have figured out that she struggles against projectiles. Like, she struggles really bad against them. She does have that special, that spinny move special that I almost never use in neutral at this point. I probably should have tried it a few times, but it's not very good. It's designed to go through projectiles, but it's actually not very good at it. Like the number of frames that you have to go through projectiles is actually pretty low. Like it's very slow and it's late into the animation. The EX version is a little better at it, but honestly I don't really like using an EX for this because you don't get any pressure from that knockdown anyway. So if they use a lot of projectiles, I tend to struggle more. I think dash in command grab with Manon is pretty good. Like it's sort of deceptively fast somehow, which is interesting because her drive rush is slow. So maybe that's why it's slow. Like they're probably afraid of people using drive rush into command grab to sort of destroy the neutral, which is fair and I understand that. Yeah, so at this point it worked out. I think the thing I did well in this match was managing my drive gauge. Like I did not get burned out. I think if I had, I probably would have lost the game. As long as you manage your drive gauge right, usually things tend to go well. Which is interesting. And something I kind of like about this game. Well, this guy is high master already. So he's above the 1600 MR threshold, which is, you know, it was my goal for this session to make it there. But he's the first high master player I've played in ranked, which was interesting. I'm getting closer to the way there already, and if I can win against him, I can't remember how many points it gives me, but it gives me a little more. So here I'm not using EX because I don't want to, you know, get burnt out, which I think was the right decision. Because let's say, you know, I use EX, I get more damage, I get a medal, but I don't kill him, and I get burned out. If he manages to put me in the corner somehow with a throw or a jump over, then I'm gonna be in big trouble. He's actually not very good at punishing my mistakes. Well, here I could have punished as well, but I forgot that the second hit whiffs. Again, Kuma is a DLC character, and he seems to play a little differently from in other Street Fighters. So I'm also being a little bit uncomfortable. Good anti-air there. Yeah, I think that's the new version of the grab teleport. This is gonna work. So if you're reasonably close, then you can definitely go through fireballs with that super, but you have to be really close, which I think he either didn't know or forgot. He seems to be playing a bit on autopilot, to be honest. And I think I realized at this point that I can, even though this guy is ranked higher than me, I can definitely win this. And even though the character seems to be really strong, like he's not playing super safe, and Manon does a lot of damage, so if he's not using projectiles much, then it's probably an easy matchup for her. Yeah, he gets hit by the overheads. At this point, I have to be cautious because I'm gonna get burned out, probably. Or not. See, I get the command grab. I think I'm playing too fast for him offensively. And that you'll find that, it depends on players. Like some players are comfortable playing against fast gameplay. Some players are comfortable playing against slow gameplay. So ideally you want to be able to do both. I am not great at playing slow, at least in this game, and I find it really hard to do so. But yeah, I think I was anticipating a fireball right away, which he did not do. But I think he could have punished my special. So most players at these ranges also seem to be not great at punishing. Yeah, I think he caught on to the fact that I was being over aggressive. So now he's using reversals. And anti-air, which are definitely going to make it more difficult for me to win. Yeah, I'm jumping into too much at this point. I'm being too predictable. I should try and play more neutral and approach on the ground. And my drive gauge is dangerously low at this point. Yeah, that's a nice shime. I'm unless he makes a huge mistake, and he does. And honestly, that was kind of Rago, if I'm being honest. But I had a feeling that he was stressing out, and he was definitely going to try to catch me on my landing. So that's why I did the invincible super. And again, it was not a bad bet. It was risky, but I was pretty much dead already because I was on burnout. So, sorry. He was definitely going to chip me out, which is really easy, I think, for Akuma to do. And at this point, he's just mentally broken down, probably. Even though, that was a bad drive reversal because I burned myself out. So this could go south really quickly. And it kind of does, and Kuma does so much damage. This guy has his combos on point. At this point, this is a hard round. Let's see, I'm probably going to do something. Yeah, right away. I think he tried to do EX Fireball to get more pressure, and what I did was really risky there. But I think that might have been the only move that reached. Maybe Sweep would have reached, but both of them are unsafe anyway. So it worked out. And I think I really wanted the win. At this point, I'm 2 games away from getting High Master. So, I do play a little desperate in some situations. This was a very tense match because I remember that, so this is rank up opportunity for me. If I win this, I make it into High Master, which, I've never done. So that would be pretty cool. But the guy I'm playing against, this Ken player, is also on his, rank up match opportunity. So if he wins it, he makes it into High Master. So it's like, either of us is going to make it, but it can't be both. It can only be one of them. I'm trying to play locked in at this point. I'm playing pretty decent, even though I'm whiffing a few things, but it's not going too bad. Getting pushed to the corner is really bad, though. Thankfully, he probably does the wrong Jinrai option, and he gets put into the corner, which is good for me. And he forgot to watch out for driving bad, which I understand is not easy to do. Yeah, I get hit by that. And I can't remember. Yeah, it doesn't kill me. thankfully he didn't have a way to kill me, and here I can just chip him out because he's in burnout. So again, I think he was also playing a bit desperate with that overhead. He probably should have waited it out and played defensively, but he might have been a bit scared because I can also chip him out. But he gave me an option to chip him out safely. It was, I lost 2 super bars from this, but I think it was worth it in the end because this was an important round to win. Trying to be patient in the neutral and, apply pressure when I can, but when I can't, I try not to force it. See, yeah, he's whiffing Dragon Lash. So he's playing pretty impatient, which makes it easy for me. However, this is a really bad burnout. And I have to be cautious and not get pushed to the other corner here. Yeah. And I felt like he tried to bait a throw. And, I knew that he was plus after blocking Dragon Lash. And he was really plus because I was burned out. So I did a reversal, which was, a risk. But you also have to let them know that they can't pressure you for free. At this point, I got the high master rank already, and he doesn't. So I think he's probably a bit pissed off that I denied his rank up opportunity. And I felt like, okay, I have to play the rematch because it's the right thing to do. You can't just play one game and leave when you make it to your goal. But what if I lose this game? Then I'm going to be a bit upset because I made it to my goal, but then I lost. Oh, thankfully he used parry on Entire and not Shoryuken. And here that was a pretty bad super. He's making really bad decisions and definitely cracking. And this is just like it's my game to lose. Yeah, he has nothing. No reversals, no EX meter. So I'm feeling pretty good at this point. I feel like this guy is really frustrated. And I get it. I would be as well. I'm also on a good winning streak, so I'm feeling pretty good. So let's see how this goes. His drive gauge management is not great. Like he's already almost lost all his drive gauge, and yeah, it's close to being a wrap. I think here I could have probably done a bit more, but I'm gonna win this game for sure. So yeah, this is the end of the run. Get my high master rank, which was the goal, and that's it. I can't remember how many games I played here. This has to be close to 20 games in a row, but it was pretty cool. I had fun. I don't think I'm ready to jump up to the next goal, at least in this game, which is 1,700 MR. So I'm gonna keep playing a little. I think I'll go back to Third Strike because that's my main game at the moment, and I have offline tournaments coming up. But I'll definitely revisit this game. It's pretty cool. It's hard to play. I feel like I still have a whole lot to learn, which is it's a good feeling when what you have to learn is like not small micro decisions or optimizations. It's more like there are entire pans of the gameplay of both the game and my characters that I'm not really leveraging or using, but I still felt pretty good that I was able to make it that far without really playing the game. So I think there's some promise. Anyway, if you made it this far, thank you for listening. I hope this was in any way helpful or interesting, and see you next time. Thank you. Bye.